Welcome everyone to today's QuestionPro webinar on remote employee engagement, 4 ways to tap into employee ideas. My name is Jamie Notter. I am founding partner at Human Workplaces, which is a culture design firm, and we help organizations align their workplace culture with what makes them successful, which includes understanding what your culture really is, then understanding the culture patterns inside your organization and how they're messing with success, and then actually doing something about it. Something that we're going to talk about today called coming up with plays for your culture playbook. The assessment part of it, that first part where you actually assess your culture and find out what it is, the assessment that we created, QuestionPro was smart enough to buy from us, and it is now in their employee engagement platform, which is one reason why we're always doing these webinars with these guys and partnering with them and actually helping some of their clients as well with the implementation. So my partner in crime today is Anoop Surendran. Anoop, you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Jamie. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Yes, we will continue using Jamie for the foreseeable future because we don't have that expertise to go and explain why culture matters to our organizations. And it's best for these folks, Jamie and team, to help us with that. We are a product company and we continue to focus in on product. These models we have put in place are thanks to the 50 plus years of experience coming back from the human resources market, and we embed these into our platform, right? So my area again is around product, and I will walk through product today within the context of remote employee engagement. Go ahead, Jamie.
Awesome. And one thing I want to prime your thinking before I get into the setup here, we're talking about ideas for improving remote employee engagement today. And this is going to be a participatory webinar during the part that Anoop was talking about, where you're going to have an opportunity to actually suggest some ideas. So as I'm going through this in the background, start thinking of an idea or two, like what would be a good idea for improving engagement with an all remote workforce now, because you'll have an opportunity to share that later, which will also, I'm not even gonna give away the prizes, will also enter you to win a little prize at the end. So think about that while I set it up. And the context here, the slide here, like you're tired of hearing the new normal. A few months ago, most of us had workplaces where we were in the office, and suddenly we all got sent home with this whole COVID crisis. And then immediately the business world was just full of cliches like, oh, it's the new normal, it's unprecedented times, it's uncharted territories, whatever it was. And I gotta admit, I got a little tired of the cliches there for a while. But the truth of the matter is we were faced with something brand new. Like, this is what everyone's work world looks like now, video calls all day long. We did not work that way before. Now, there were some organizations that were all remote, but they were definitely the minority. And we're now a few months into this, and I think we've been adjusting fairly well. I mean, I kind of want to give ourselves some credit for continuing to keep the organizations running while we suddenly shifted to an all remote workforce. But I'm also noticing, and you can go to the next slide, Anoop, that this remote workforce is this change that we've all gone through has started to generate what I call culture friction points, right? So when you shifted to all remote, suddenly that was actually a pretty big culture change, because you're changing the way you're doing the work. And while we've adjusted for the most part, I've been talking to leaders over the last few months trying to get a sense of what are they noticing in the friction points? Where are their problems emerging? And I've seen 3 big ones so far. Number one is duplication of effort. I've got a lot of leaders that are telling these stories about how different teams in their organization end up working for weeks on end on the same thing without realizing that the other team was doing it, right? Each team thought they were supposed to do that part. And it doesn't come out until, later on, and they're having the whole group meeting and they realize they've been wasting their time working on the same thing for a matter of weeks. This kind of inefficiency is just hard to tolerate in this environment of rapid change. Number 2, then the second biggest thing I've heard is about disrupted timelines. It's interesting because I don't know how you guys are experiencing this, but most of the organizations I talk to, everyone's talking about working more now that we're working from home, right? Like, the hours put in has increased dramatically, yet we're still not meeting our timelines. And part of that is because we're putting in hours, but it's doing different things. Like we end up having more and more meetings to inform people of stuff, and it just back to back to back video calls all day long, and no one has time to actually do the work, right? So um, we've adjusted our processes, but not in a very efficient way, and so we're falling behind schedule. I see a lot of people complaining about that. And then third, most senior leaders I talk to have told me about increased internal conflict as a result of this shift. And my original background is in the field of conflict resolution. This one didn't particularly surprise me because in moving to a remote environment, so, you know, by definition, communication is going to be a little more difficult. We're not going to have as much communication. And when you don't communicate as much, when you have less information, you make up more in your head. And I guarantee you, when we make up more in our heads, that's where we cause the conflicts, because we make mistakes and we don't realize it, and we didn't have a chance to talk about it. One of my HR friends said, yeah, once they went remote, she noticed that the prickly people in her organization became a bit pricklier, right? And so I see a lot more conflict flaring up. And again, these are friction points. These slow us down. They get in the way of performance. And if we don't fix those, it can really damage engagement and performance of the organization. So if you go to the next slide, what we did at Human Workplaces is look at a database we have of what we call culture plays. And actually, next slide, a culture play is, we use playbook metaphor. It's just a change in the way you do things that moves your culture in the right direction, okay? You can change your processes, you can introduce a new technology. It's not rocket science here. It's just things you do that move your culture in the right direction. And we have a database of more than 400 plays from organizations that have developed culture change programs in the last several years, all pre-COVID, by the way. And we analyze that database to say, all right, where are the plays that are going to be most relevant to this new remote environment? And we looked at a lot of things around transparency, and information sharing, because we figured that was an issue. They said I looked to see if there were plays related to conflict, because I think that's an issue. And we also looked to find plays, action items that were relatively easy to implement, because when things are moving as fast as they are right now, like you can still do some long-term, big, heavy, heavy lift plays, but you need to be able to do things really quickly. And in analyzing all of those plays, we identified 6 specific categories that I think would help adjust to the remote environment and improve engagement by making people more effective in their work. We're going to talk about 4 of them today with specific examples in each. And when it comes to information, I told you there's a lot about information sharing and information flow. Obviously, with information flow, there's 2 directions there. There's the top-down stuff, and then there's the bottom-up. And we actually are going to cover both today. But I want to start with the bottom-up because this is something that many leaders I talk to specifically struggle with, actually pre-COVID, but also now that their employees are remote. It's really hard to get information from the bottom up, to get ideas from employees to say, what can we do to improve? There was some reluctance to do that before, but now that we're remote, it's even less. And I literally had some leaders say, oh, if only there was some sort of virtual like suggestion box, like someone put that as a play in one of their culture change plans. But they treat it as if some dream, like, oh, if only we could do that. Well, it turns out you can do that. This has been around for a while, and specifically you can do it in the QuestionPro platform. So I'm going to turn it over to Noob. He's going to cover the first of our 4 tips, because it's going to be about getting ideas and managing ideas from your employees, and you can actually do that in the QuestionPro platform.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for setting up the stage so well. Tip number 1, engage with an idea board. So Jamie referred to bottom-up listening. That's one, if you don't listen to employees, you don't engage with them. There's no point sending emails every week unless you can start listening to them. Whether that is a survey or whether it's an idea board really doesn't matter, but idea board has this uniqueness to it, which is the way we do it, for example, at QuestionPro is we run a weekly town hall, and we ask our employees, hey, are there process inefficiencies which we should address this quarter or this week? Are there things which you care about for the next town hall, for example, right? So we use this tool platform, and we call it the idea portal, right? One of the things we get as a team, what do we get out of this engagement, this activity, is that we get different ideas from different pockets of the organization, because they care about those ideas that for their own, day-to-day work, for example, right? So these pockets of ideas come up, and they have champions behind these ideas who take those forward, right? It gives that sense of giving back to your team, giving back to the business, something which you've come up with or your team has come up with, and there's more ownership when you engage with an idea which your team came up with, and that automatically increases engagement. Now, Jamie did ask you folks to come up with an idea. I know, hey, Nick, I got that hi from you already through the back channel. Hi there, Nick. Thanks for joining again. But going back, there is this URL you see at the bottom of my screen called eeids.questionpro.com. Pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go straight into the platform now. So let me switch into that. So let me start up a new tab, eeids.questionpro.com. It'll redirect you to this page. All of you should be seeing that. If you do not see that, just post comments on the comment window within Zoom, and one of our staff can help you with this. So it's EE-IDEAS. I'll switch back to this presentation. eeids.questionpro.com. EE stands for Employee Engagement Ideas.questionpro.com. Once you type that in, you should be here. Once you are here, you should ideally type your name in. So I'll type my name in and put an email address. And you can sign it. So no password required. We kept it open. Right, and this should be a landing page. And on the bottom left, we have Oliver Smith. I guess he just joined. That's why I see him here. So this is all ideas have just shown up here. These are not sorted by popularity, just all ideas as they come in. And the ask from Jamie at the beginning of the webinar was to think of an idea which can help with remote engagement. And the way you can add that idea into this platform is clicking on this button at the bottom right. I'm going to see if I can maximize this a little more so that we have a little more screen real estate. Jamie, can still see the screen?
Yep, looks good.
Good, good, awesome. So here at the bottom, you see an add idea button. Click on the add idea button. The campaign we're running right now is called Remote Employee Engagement. So I'm going to add one idea. Let me think. Coffee was a great idea. You know what we did recently? We got the designers together, and we got Laura added new idea there. Awesome, thank you. Just thanks, Laura, for that idea. With the UX team, we did a game. We actually played a virtual game, virtual multiplayer game. What was the game again? I don't know if Jess was there or Raul was there. Raul, do you remember the name of the game? I see you online, so you can just post that. It's a virtual player game with multiple people, multiple teams. And I loved it because it was people just getting used to the keyboard. This game was played by the keyboard. So that additional hardship, actually, there was much more commentary around that. Make it hard. Make it a hard game. Make it multiple people, multiplayer, right? The multiplayer. And I'm going to add a tag here. Let's see. Meeting. I don't think I see this. I'm going to call it gaming. Add that tag. Now that tag I just added helps me with grouping ideas together. So if I go to my top left-hand sandwich icon, I should probably see gaming here somewhere, or maybe this is just the top 5. Let's take meetings, for example. These are all ideas we just got in terms of meetings. So the 17 June, 16 June. This is something I posted. I do not believe in having meetings every day. In our team, for example, we do not have meetings on certain days of the week, right? So certain days, for example, Mondays is a no meeting day. So we do this just to let employees do some what we call deep work. The people who report to me have to do deep work in terms of thinking, through problem solving. I got Donna Scott. I hope she's just voted for that. Awesome. Thank you for that vote. Now, going back to the popular ideas here, we got some, I think some of these were also popular because Jamie has been preaching his culture plays in other organizations, and I think some of these organizations have already joined this webinar. So I'm going to pick and choose something. Anything which piques your interest, Jamie, here? Jamie, you got friction here.
Yeah,
Anything which you want to talk about in a little more detail? I know you will present some of these ideas later.
yeah, well, I like the acting on the feedback and data. That's really important.
Which one is that? This one here from Donald
Yeah.
Harris. Okay, yeah, a lot of people are voting for that. That's a popular idea. Um, let's just click on that one more time. Yeah, there you go. He's on the top now. No comments though. I love to hear comments. You can go and click on any of these comment boxes, and you can actually post further comments. So this is pretty easy to use tool. Good news here, as you see, I have 10 active users actually using it as we speak. So some of them from the webinar, some of the audience from the webinar is actively using it. Let me see if there are some ideas. Recipe exchange. I love that idea. That's my top one for the day. Robin, thank you for joining this. And that's a great idea. I love this. And there's more cooking happening. I just talked to one of my product person recently, and she was telling me like, you know what? I spend half of my time cooking now, and I love cooking. It just keeps my creativity flowing. That's how I reduce my stress at home. I don't have to deal with my husband when I do cooking. It's my domain. It's my room. I do whatever I feel like doing. It's a great idea, the recipe exchange. Going back to popular ideas a little more. Let's see if anybody else can beat Robin. You just won this battle, Robin. I think you are probably Robin, you're probably the leader. Let me go to the leaderboard now, switch to the leaderboard. Oh, I got number one because I probably have a lot of commentary going on mine. Let me see where Robin is. Robin is number 4, right? So I don't want to be number 1. I still want somebody else to beat me here. I don't want Jamie's prize. I'm not a big fan of his prize. Let's see. Let's vote for Robin. Let's all champion in for Robin and Laura. Oh, Laura got something. What gets recognized gets repeated. So she's there you go. Deb is voting for that. Oliver is voting for this. Good. Robin, hopefully you become the leader. Even if you're second place, I'm not going to get the second prize here. Either Oliver, John, or Robin is highly likely to get that prize. So continue voting. And this is how it works. It's pretty straightforward. You see engagement happening. It's very easy to use. Comes along with our platform, along with our standard surveys and polling and pulsing. This is something we offer. I'm going to stop sharing, actually not stop sharing, go back to my deck here. So like I said, summary, use a tool like that, circulate ideas which matter, champion some of these ideas, especially within different pockets. You can run different campaigns and make things happen, right? So every meeting you go and say, hey, this is the top idea we had from the last meeting. We're going to spend 3 months making this happen, right? So a good way to do what we call bottom-up listening. Moving on, I'll pass this on to Jamie. Let me move on to the slide here, slide number 12. Let me present this one more time.
Awesome. All right, so that was that was gathering more data from your employees, getting more ideas from the ground up. It is also important, and this is one of the 3 other sort of categories that I want to talk about today, to share more information from the top. Again, even pre-COVID, I would hear this a lot, that employees don't really understand what's going on at the highest levels, and why don't they share more information. From specific plays that you can run in a remote environment, which I've seen organizations do, is number 1, more all hands meetings, where the CEO or at least someone from the senior team can just share more information with everybody. I mean, once we all went remote, suddenly there was a bit of anxiety created because nobody knows what's going on. I mean, not even in our organizations, just in the world. We kind of don't know what's going on. We're feeling a little anxious about it. It can go a long way just to have senior leaders on a regular basis say, hey, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, here's what we're looking into. Just share more information from the very, very top of the organization. A lot of organizations have been doing that, or some of them have been doing that before, but since they went remote, that's been pretty popular. But regardless of that, because that's really from the very top of the organization, Also share like agendas or notes from the meetings that happen at the senior level. That can be senior management team level, but it could also be a couple layers below that. Um, there are a lot of managers meeting with a lot of other managers and not telling anyone what they're talking about. And I get pushback on this. Everyone's like, oh, well, we talk about confidential stuff and we can't share everything. Fine, don't share the confidential stuff. I'm not asking for that. But there's something you can share about what was said or what was talked about or what decisions were made. And build that habit inside your organization. Put those notes on a shared drive so people can see them. Some people say, oh, well, we talk about boring stuff. They wouldn't want to know. Well, then fine, put it out there and see whether they find it boring or not. But the more information you can put in people's hands, the more at ease they're going to feel. I think that goes a long way these days. The next category, Anoop, if you move to the next slide, is I call it increased passive transparency. This one's really, really huge.
Amy, I had a question. I'm going to
Oh yeah,
interrupt you for a bit.
yeah, go.
The agenda sharing, is there, so let's say I have agenda sharing around, I don't know, expenses or, the strategy around maybe cutting costs and everything, right? I know that's not the best information to share.
Yep.
But is there what have you seen what people typically share and what excites employees? What are the themes which comes under that?
It's mostly just the content of what the senior people are discussing. So if you can't say, like, you're definitely not going to say, wow, we're planning layoffs, let's put those notes out there. Like, you're not going to do stuff like that. But if you know that you're talking about restructuring our costs, and if you know we're talking about, like, even if you know you're talking about cost cutting, you don't have to come up with the conclusions. But now I know the senior management is talking about that, and that's important for me, right? Like, just to be aware of that. It's more the topics than the details.
Mhm.
And it's easy to share the topics in a way that is not revealing too much. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Is there a cleansing process people have to follow? Well, the agenda is pretty raw with the items of discussion. Do you go through? I'm just going a little detail here to see how we can implement it internally, because we do have a lot of management meetings internally, which
Well,
touches
yeah.
touches a lot of areas, right? HR being one of them, product strategy being another one, product marketing, a lot of stuff we talk about, right? And transparency, I know you're going to talk about it. Uh, have you seen something which has, which people or companies you've consulted for where they've efficiently, transferred agenda for what I call employee engagement?
Well, I mean, they actually end up building some new habits. In other words, when we have our senior meetings or our high level department level meetings, we use sort of shorthand on our agendas that wouldn't make sense to other people. And they've
Makes
actually
sense. Makes
changed their
sense. Yeah.
habits now to say, you know what, other people are going to read this, so let's be clearer, which actually benefits everybody. So it requires some changing of the habits. We used to do it this way, now we got to do it a different way if we're going to be more transparent about it. Because it's the idea that, oh, well, I only want to share it on a need to know basis. Like, I'll tell you as soon as you need to know it. You don't know when they need to know it. So the more you build in the default of being transparent about it, the sort of better the decision making is system wide. So that's sort of the benefit.
And even if you know when they need to know, you'll still forget to share the
Right,
content.
right. So you
Yeah,
just make
go
it a
ahead,
habit.
Jamie.
So next area is, I call it increasing passive transparency. It's amazing how much information you get when you're in the office just by being around people, overhearing them, seeing what's going on around the office that now you don't have in the remote environment. Like, you used to be sitting in your cube and you would notice that the entire marketing team just went into the conference room in a huff and they're having this really serious meeting. And you don't know what they're talking about because you're not on marketing, but you know that meeting happened. And when you're remote, those meetings happen and you have no clue, right? And it's important because later in the day, you get some piece of information that was probably going to be relevant to marketing, and they're top of mind for you because you saw them had that meeting. So you share it with them, and it turns out to be extremely helpful. But again, when we're all remote, you didn't know that meeting happened. That little bit of information that comes across your desk doesn't hit the radar, and it doesn't get shared. So in a remote environment, do what you can to replace what that lost passive transparency. So 3 specific things. Number 1, who does what in the organization? If you don't know what every team does, then now is a good time to brush up on your job descriptions and put them in a place where everyone can see them. So people, if they have an idea about, wait, I need to talk to someone who might be involved in this area, who is that? I can find out. Number 2, who's meeting with whom? So that example of the marketing team meeting in the conference room, how do you make that visible? Well, you work a little bit more diligently on your online calendaring. Okay, make sure meetings get put in the calendar, maybe even with a couple of agenda bullets in there, so people, I'm not going to have everybody's meetings in my calendar all at once all the time, but I can turn them all on and scan them and get a sense of the sort of meeting cadence and who's meeting with whom, because that's really important. And number 3, who's doing what? Find some way to give some visibility to what everyone's working on. Like it sounds really boring, but I mean, I was in part of a remote organization where we had a Slack channel where every day you just either at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, put down what you did that day or the day before. In just really short, not to like prove that you were busy or look impressive, just like boring stuff like I worked on the webinar slides today. And the reason is when you see that sort of in the background cumulatively, you get a sense of the flow and what's being worked on. And when that changes, because when that changes, that maybe has an impact for you. And you used to get a sense of this just being around the office. So you need some sort of technology to sort of implement that. And then the last topic, again, my background is in conflict resolution, but I've been hearing this a lot. Figure out how to handle your difficult conversations. It's particularly hard in a remote environment to sort of have your conflict. But generally, and I've been doing this for years in organizations, we're not very good at our conflict conversations. And so get your people training in this. And here's the good news, now that everybody's all remote and conferences aren't happening, everyone who delivers conflict resolution training now has an online version of it. So there are plenty of opportunities to get education on difficult conversations or crucial conversations or conflict resolution. For senior leaders, I recommend some coaching in addition to that. Training is good and important, but coaching lets a senior leader actually practice with an expert on how to handle some of their tough conversations, or say, you know what, I've got this one-on-one with my direct report and we have to talk about this touchy subject. How do you think I should approach it? Being able to apply it in a real world situation is super helpful. So at the senior level, I tend to recommend some coaching as well. Now, both of those cost money, and I recognize that budgets are slashed. So if you want a free way to practice, to work on difficult conversations, create internal practice sessions. Like set up a time at Friday at 3 o'clock where you can all go to a Zoom call and have an opportunity to practice giving feedback to people or practice talking about a tough topic with people and have them give, supportive feedback to you as you're doing it. It's easy and it's free, and I'll tell you, your conversations are going to be a lot better if you've had a chance to try them out first when it's not that pressure-filled situation. So those are our 4 tips, right? So gather information from the ground up. That's using the idea portal tool that Anoop showed you. Get more from the top down. Work on that passive transparency piece, and then figure out how to support people in having the difficult conversations. If you can do that, I think you'll definitely be able to improve employee engagement in the organization. I also forgot to remind you guys to put questions you have in the chat box, because we'll have a minute or 2 here to answer them. But Anoop, are we going to the next slide? Are you closing that?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay, Jimmy?
There you go.
I was on mute. Yeah, I was just saying, hey, how's it going? And then nobody was hearing me. But yeah, just a summary of what the QuestionPro employee engagement platform is. It has 3 components. The first one being the employee experience platform, where we can measure different touch points of an employee, either through onboarding surveys or exit surveys or specific, again, touch points which can be measured. as part of the employee journey itself within the company. We have an employee engagement platform. You saw one piece today, which is the employee idea board, where people can submit ideas during a live session. You can see interactivity on who's voting for ideas, who is coming up with new ideas, a leaderboard and all that. I'll go back to that for a second, just so that for people who joined late, they see what that is. I also have a purpose of finding who the leader is with the ideation. So we definitely want to give out that prize. Then we have another thing coming under employee engagement, which is called the ask. The concept here is a day of the week, let's say Monday or Friday, you have a pool of questions you want to ask different parts of your organization. Let's say the CEO wants to ask the marketing team how things were with this webinar, for example, to say, how do you think this webinar went? What can we do to improve a webinar? How do you generally feel with the COVID situation? You can ask all these questions, and we democratize question asking, but scheduling it, very, very simple question going in a mobile app, which trickles down to different parts of your organization. So that's something we will showcase. Jamie and I will come back one of these days, and I will be happy to showcase that piece of the employee engagement capability. Last but not the least is the culture assessment tool. Jamie is our front-facing, customer-facing person, especially with culture assessment. He talked about culture plays. I'm sure there are tactical plays you can put in place even as soon as this webinar is over. Or you could do long-term consulting with Jamie and measuring the DNA of your organization. We've done, most recently, we've done pre-M&A consulting, post-M&A consulting, because the DNA of an organization changes as we go through an evolution of an organization, whether it's through acquisition or a merger. So all these components are available as part of the platform. If you're interested, just you will see in the chat thread the email which you need to mail to. One thing I am offering, surprise offer, is, I think we talk about it in the slide, but is we will do a free employee remote health check. So anybody who signed up for this webinar can avail this offer, a free employee health check. How does that look like? It's awesome. I'm not going to details that we walked through that in one of our previous webinars too. But switching back to what we did showcase today, let me share screen one more time. See if I can bring that up. Don't have my share ready. Okay, there we go. Do it one more time. Share screen. Hopefully you can see my screen now, or no?
It's pretty
Jamie, can you
mountain.
see my There we go. Can you see it now?
Yeah, that's better.
There we go. So going back to the employee ideation platforms for those who joined late, eeideas.questionpro.com. You see that in the URL here in the top. EE for employee engagement ideas.questionpro.com. You log in. You should put in a name and an email address, and then you will land at this screen. And it looks like Robin Roach has won this battle on ideation. Recipe Exchange seems to be the most creative idea around employee engagement so far. Jamie, what do you think?
I like it, as long as you send me the recipes.
And there was a question on chat around, can you download these ideas? The answer is yes. You get a spreadsheet. You have to log in through the backend to download those ideas. Now let's see, the other thing I can do here is I can look for ideas from Jamie. So let me try Jamie. Jamie, come on, you should post more ideas, man. Let's see. Work on that, okay? Work on the ideation. Robin, one idea from Robin. Anybody else we should look for? I don't know. Let's see. People are pretty active. Laura, let's see if Laura posted any other ideas. I guess not, but we'll just quickly test that out, Laura. Or just search for meetings. You can search for meeting. You should get ideas around meetings. So there we go. Share more from the top, increase passive transparency. Anybody else posted anything else recently? No, this is something I did. Let's look at popular ideas one more time. Donald is number 2, John Smith is 3, I'm number 4 now. Let's see if the leaderboard still says that. Yeah, Robin has won this prize with 105 points because our idea got probably the most amount of votes. Um, there we go, 13 votes there. And I will go back to the deck one more time. I give you a high level overview. The winner is Robin Reach, and she will get Jamie's bestseller. Jamie and Maddie wrote that. I've read 3 chapters of it, to be honest. I selectively chose the 3
That's
chapters.
impressive.
But you know, I'm a fast reader. I only choose the ones which I want to read. Great book. Highly recommended. And you can reach out to Jamie with any questions you have around employee engagement or us for the tool itself. And any more questions? Let's wait for the last couple of minutes here with questions. So AJ, if you want to come online with any questions, I'm more than happy to engage.
I will say, if we don't have any questions, I did want to touch on the point that was raised earlier, that one person raised in the platform about implementing ideas. And I love the idea management sort of component to this and getting more ideas from the ground up. I can't emphasize enough, though, how important it is to actually do something with the ideas. You know?
Yes, that is true.
Like don't ask if you're not willing to do anything. Now, I get other people, I mean, leaders sometimes push back like, well, I can't just do everything they say, which is also true. Like I view all these ideas basically as requests, and you can always say no to a request, right? If someone says, hey, I have an idea, we should do X, Y, and Z, and X, Y, and Z is going to cost the company $50 million, and you don't have $50 million in cash, it's okay to say, no, we don't have the resources to do that. So it's okay to say no, but when you say no, you got to say why. You know what I mean? Like, don't just say no and don't ignore it. Ignoring it is really the worst thing, right? So people put ideas, nothing happens, nobody says anything. But if you're going to get those ideas out there, you have to be able to respond to them. No is an okay response, but kind of explain why. If people understand why, I don't think they're going to be unhappy about their ideas not being acted on. You know what I mean? As long as they understand why. So I think that's really
Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. Jamie, a couple of questions have come up. I think one of them I already answered. Around, can you download those ideas? Yes, you can download these ideas by campaign. So you can run multiple campaigns in your organization. What is a campaign? A campaign is areas where you want to ideate around, right? So it could be process efficiency, ideas around your next town hall, you know, your remote, happy hour ideas, and what kind of cocktails you want to present, recipe ideas. It really doesn't matter. It could be any campaign. That's a question from Jennifer Martinell. Thank you, Jennifer. I think you already got that answer. This is just for the rest of the crowd here, rest of the audience. Robin, you won. Good job. Nick has asked. There's a question from AJ. Yeah, go ahead, AJ.
Yeah. So somebody just put in, our company started doing all hands meetings shortly after we went remote, but they've become sort of boring and scripted. So do we have any tips for making them more interesting?
Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, other than having a more interesting CEO, yeah, I don't know if I can help with that part, but I have seen that happen with clients. They sort of, it was good at first, you know, but then they kind of just sort of fell into a rut. And I actually saw one organization notice that, and so what they did, which I thought was really cool, is every I don't know, I can't remember the frequency, but however often they have the all hands meetings, at least one a quarter was going to be sort of an open-ended strategic conversation. So it's not just a report out, like here's what I know, here's what's going on. And the topic would be generated like at the meeting. So very specifically, so the senior people who were reporting did not have a chance to prepare their answers in advance. You know what I mean? So it's just a structure your meeting a different way. Instead of having it be all like reporting out where people can practice what they're going to say ahead of time, which you still need to do some of those, have some that are just more open-ended and emergent, where topics get thrown out and people have to respond to them on the fly. And again, I don't think they're going to want to do that every time, because it makes them a little nervous usually, the senior people, to have to do that. But a structure like that, I think would would help a lot, and it worked well for that organization.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Jamie. The other question is, where do we mail the, if we want to run a remote employee health check, who do we talk to? I guess that's an email address. What's the email address? I think it's success at, I forget, my bad. I think the message is
Success@QuestionPro.com.
I think they're going to put that into the chat thread. So we will, can you type that in, AJ, into the chat? AJ, do you know what it is offhand? What that email address is?
Yeah, it's success.
There you go.
Registered.
Success@QuestionPro.com. There we go. Success@QuestionPro.com. And you can avail of a free remote employee health check. Got one more question around recommendations on virtual games, specifically a foosball game for remote employees. So obviously we got somebody who's a foosball fan, Nicholas Reyes. And I don't have any recommendations. We used to play foosball. I miss foosball myself.
Yeah, I know.
So I guess we have to find something. Jamie, do you play foosball?
I'm horrible at foosball, but
I saw you playing last time in Washington.
Yeah.
After a couple of beers, you did it single-handedly. Yeah,
I'll do it. I do not. But like you, I do not have a virtual option for that one.
That is true. That is true. We'll have to find. If anybody has a virtual foosball option, let me know. I'll be indebted to you folks, and I'll also run an employee health check after that. Okay, so so I think that's the. Let's see if there's any more questions. No, that's pretty much it. We're going to wrap it up now. Yep. Okay, Jamie, thank you again. Thanks to the audience for making this engaging and coming up with that amazing idea. So we will use that idea in our organization too. I know people are cooking much more than before. So the sharing recipe ideas is going to be a great idea. So that's it, folks. Thank you.